and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Farah Kassemi to the stage, Director, Empire Club Canada.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am still Farah Kassemi. For those of you just joining us through either our webcast or our podcast, welcome to the Empire Club of Canada. Speaking to you today from the Shangri-La Hotel in downtown Toronto. Today we present an event I have personally been looking forward to for months, the collective wisdom of high-performing women, leadership lessons from the Judy Project. Now, I have the best job today. I continue to get to introduce some of the most accomplished women I have had the pleasure of ever knowing to come up on stage. Please hold your applause to the very end, no matter how difficult this may be. First, a woman I only just got introduced to this past summer, but through her work on bringing us the collective wisdom, the book, the collection of stories that today's event is dedicated to, she has impacted me, she has no idea, so much personally, but also, I'm sure, many other men and women who have made this the current #1 bestseller in workplace on Amazon. Colleen Moorehead is Chief Client Officer, Osler, Hoskin and Harcourt LLP, responsible for implementing Osler's client-focused business development strategy. She was co-founder of E-Trade Canada and has extensive experience building successful companies and valuable brands. Since 2003, she's been a founder and current business director of the Judy Project, one of Canada's leading leadership forums, uniquely designed for executive women ascending to C-suite positions, courtesy of the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management. Colleen has been recognized with the 2015 Catalyst Canada Honors Business Leader Award and the Canadian Marketing Hall of Legends Business Builder 2010 Award. We're also joined today by Martine Irman, Vice Chair, TD Securities, and Senior Vice President, TD Bank Group. On the board side, get ready for this, she chairs the Export Development Canada Board, sits on the board of TMX Group, chairs the YMCA of Greater Toronto Board, is a co-founder and inaugural co-chair of Women Gaining Ground for United Way Toronto, and sits on the Women in Capital Markets Advisory Council. Phew. She was honored as one of Canada's top 40 under 40, was given the 2013 Award for Leadership by Women in Capital Markets and the 2016 Distinguished Leader Award by Brock University's Goodman School of Business. After a stellar career at TD, she recently broke a lot of hearts by announcing her retirement. Third on stage will be Maria Theofilaktidis. You keep saying it, and as someone, as I said to Maria, as someone whose last name keeps getting pronounced wrong, I owe her one. Maria is Executive Vice President, Chief Compliance Officer, and Head of Enterprise Risk at Scotiabank, with responsibility for the implementation of an enterprise-wide strategy for effectively managing compliance risk across the Scotiabank Group, aligned with corporate strategies and regulatory requirements. Previous to this position, she was EVP, Retail Distribution, Canadian Banking. Since joining Scotia in 2002, Maria has held various positions, including SVP of Retail, Small Business and Wealth Management, SVP and Chief Accountant, VP Financial Accounting and Reporting, VP Capital Management, and VP Professional Practice and Executive Office Audit. Maria is the executive champion for women at Scotiabank. She's a CPA and a CA and was with KPMG's national office and financial services and insurance practices in Canada and South Africa. She's a proud Greek, Cypriot, South African Canadian. Wow. Last, but not by any stretch of imagination the least, my former boss and current Canadian CEO of one of the world's largest law firms, Dentons, is Beth Wilson. Beth joined Dentons in July 2017 following a 26-year career at KPMG, where she most recently led KPMG Canada's Toronto office, its largest business unit. For many years, Beth served as a member of KPMG's management committee and in various leadership positions in Canada and around the world. She also, as a testament to her dedication to the advancement of women in business, has been recognized by WXN in 2008, 2011, 2018, by YWCA Toronto in 2015, and Canadian Women of Influence in 2014. Building on her extensive community leadership experience, Beth is also the 2019 United Way Greater Toronto Campaign Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for, please welcome our esteemed panel to the stage.
If it's okay, I'm going to start here and then move over there, just so I can stay more organized and you can find me, because I'll be out of the red. Ladies, we're good?
Yeah.
Okay. I know, eh? Thank you, all of you who chose to spend lunch with us today. I do thank RBC for being the event sponsor and Deloitte for supporting sponsor today. For both those organizations, they have been with us since the very beginning in 2002. So I thank you very much. I also have to thank Farah through creating today's Empire Club lunch. Again, through creating today's event, she demonstrates the power of going out of your way. And it is the going out of your way which is really the story that we're going to tell you today. I am proud to be one of the founders of the Judy Project. It is an innovative executive leadership program for senior women at the Rotman School of Business. The Judy Project is inspired by the late Judy Elder, a Microsoft Canada executive who was a dynamite, visionary, and a respected business leader who died suddenly in 2002 at the age of 47 of a rare blood disorder. Judy was a wife and a mother of 2 boys. She loved to cook and garden, but in her business career, she was passionate about inspiring women to be great organizational leaders. She urged women to be proud of their ambition, to reject barriers and simply just make stuff happen. When I met Judy as president of E-Trade Canada, we were a client of Microsoft Online. And I was there the day she gave the powerful 2002 speech about women and ambition. Was anybody there? Just me. Ooh, I guess I'm older. But that speech was titled Mothers, Fathers, Men, Ambition: the people and values that motivate and shape women's success. And it went viral. You'll see when you read it, it's in the book. Now, in the speech, Judy talks about ambition. And one of the things that's so cool is she defines an inclusive kind of ambition, one that instead of representing maybe greed or self-promotion, reflects a broader, more noble, I call it, approach to ambition for her company, her leaders, her team, and yes, as an outcome for herself. And so compelling was her vision of a generous, collective female ambition that when she died 3 weeks later after giving the speech, a number of us were inspired to create a leadership program named after her, lest this new definition of collective ambition be forgotten. I actually would like to have David Powell give us a wave. David was Judy's husband and was the first call I went to afterwards amidst his mourning to say, let's make something bigger out of this. I'd also recognize Sarah Scott, who is the founder of Barlow Books, who was there at every Judy project since the beginning and helped us publish the book. So anyway, the Judy Project was born in 2003 And it was done at Rotman with the support and sponsorship of 30 Canadian companies who wanted to support gender-based leadership even then. I'll tell you a wee bit about the program before we get to storytelling. The program is a one-week executive retreat held in May of each year with 30 executives handpicked from their organization. Applications open November 1st. It is designed for senior women who are defined as 3 to 5 years from the C-suite. It's intense and it's focused on you as a leader. I sometimes call it a leadership spa, not because I want to make it sound luxurious, but it's really an intense focus on a part of you, which I think is what a spa kind of does. Only it's your leadership skills. And during the week, you work on your leadership strengths. Sometimes we think about our weaknesses instead of our strengths. Your voice, your attributes. It also spends time on identifying unconscious bias in both you and in how to navigate around others. It talks and works on your network, which is there to propel you. We do some mapping and analysis of it, and there's lots of self-reflection and role models through CEO, guest speakers who do what we're going to do today. They storytell. And then you leave, and you have a peer group of 29 other equally ambitious and thoughtful peers who will be with you for life. There's been 450 women go through the Judy Project and since inception, and they've gone on to larger roles of influence in corporate Canada. We have chairs of banks, CEOs, presidents, many board members and C-suite who have been through the program. So why the book? Well, in 2017, to amplify the impact of the Judy Project, we chose to publish the book. The book was, as many great ideas are, conceived in a bar in 2010 at the Judy Project, and there it gestated for 7 years until it emerged, capturing leadership lessons, career stories from over 70 women, each who are role models of success for both men and women. The book does advocate a compelling vision of leadership that contrasts vividly with our past heroic model of leadership that was celebrated for over 60 years. I think the thing is, men returned from World War II, bringing a command and control style from the battlefield to the boardroom. And women who joined organizations in corporate leadership through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and some say the 2000s, had to adopt male characteristics in their leadership style if they wanted to succeed. And one of the big points is that leaders weren't supposed to connect on an emotional level. So in this book, we're advocating value-based leadership characteristics that are needed for today's complex, multifaceted roles, whether the leader is a man or a woman. The characteristics are things like honesty, courage, the power of connection, compassion, creating energy, always learning, tenacity, reinvention, which is something many women do throughout their career, generosity, and authenticity. So I want to speak briefly before we go, I promise, on the objectives of the book. So what do we hope to achieve in the book, and why are we coming and talking to you? So the first objective is to promote honest storytelling in a corporate context as a platform for women to drive change. We ask leaders to share their real experiences with younger women earlier in their career, preparing them to better navigate our companies. Our second theme is about the leadership themes that we talk about. We want to encourage women to embrace their own leadership style, as demonstrated in the book. So many of us, and I will put me in this place, had to modify our leadership style to achieve success. So our message is there is no need to imitate. And final, and the last one is very important. The stories, the leadership themes underline the importance of building confidence and ambition in young women. For those of you who brought a young woman with you, thank you for doing that. We have to support building these characteristics in our younger women and our younger men. Many women leave the Judy Project with a mission to pay forward the advantages of our experience. The request is that more of you do the same, and we have to achieve it by actively mentoring and sponsoring our young people and bringing them along. I am delighted that so many men have joined today. I really thank you for being here. We need men in leadership to equally own equality through their conscious actions. The world changes because we all want it to. When most successful women of my generation recall a sponsor or a mentor, it was a man. All of us are grateful for the brave men who took chances and understood the value that we brought to leadership, and more importantly, represented us when we weren't in the room. It is often misplaced gallantry that reduces a woman's career opportunities. Does she want to move? How will she feel? So thank you for all of you for taking risks on us. We want to use the book to exponentially grow our influential themes through the amplifier effect. There was one Judy speech that led to 18 people at Rotman in the working group that built the program, that led to 50 corporate executives who sponsored the program, and now 450 alumni and 70 women who published in the book. We're over 10,000 books published, yay, yay, and over 2,500 people have heard talks about these leadership lessons so far, with many more to come. So what's at the heart in the many meanings of that word? What is at the heart of the book? Many authors have different experiences, but a common mission. They are all optimistic. They're optimistic about the potential women in their organization and how they can get to the top. They're optimistic about the impact they will have when they get there. And they're really eager to pay forward the collective wisdom to the next generation of women business leaders. So now we get to the good part. Telling stories is a real kind of power. Stories give shape to experience. Our stories, when they're told with honesty, without apology, and to an ever-widening audience, that's the thing that can really move the dial. So, I'm going to go sit down now, and we'll tell some stories. Okay. Martine is up first. I don't need to give you an introduction because it was given, but I will say personally, whenever I call on the phone and ask Martine to do something, her hand goes up, whether that is community, whether it is leading or seeing young women, whatever it is. So Martine.
All right.
You good?
I am.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here, and thank you, Colleen, for 10,000 books. I don't think we clapped at 10,000, but that's awesome. Just awesome. So I'm going to tell you my story. I never thought this story would be heard by this amount of people, and let alone be in a book. And my story reflects on, just to put some context, at what stage in my career, and I hope that it motivates you and empowers you. But it was an early stage career. It's an early stage career story. So I was probably, I gotta do my math now, after 35 years, but it was in the first 10 years of my career, 10 to 12 years. And the context was I was at TD Securities running global money markets and trade finance, and I was reporting to the management committee. I was probably pretending I was older than I then was, 34. And what happened is that, and this is a story of a trading floor, so I don't know how many people have worked or seen trading floors. Okay, so they're basically like an oversized classroom with lots of computers and very little space. So what happened is, on a certain day, my boss, then CEO, calls me into his office and says, look, we're gonna consolidate some businesses. And there were two other fellows that were peers of mine running global businesses. And basically one was going to retire, unlike my retirement. That one was an unplanned retirement. And the other one was going to work for me. And we were going to consolidate global foreign exchange, international trade, derivatives, money market. And I was going to be the head of those businesses. So it was one of those promotions that you did not anticipate, or I certainly didn't anticipate. And I thought, okay. So after that was announced in a CO room, I went onto the trading floor, and I stood to the area where the fellow who was their leader for many, many years was no longer with TD, and basically it had been announced that these 3 businesses were going to report into me. As I'm standing there, and this was the foreign exchange, global foreign exchange area, and for those who haven't been on a trading floor, you have what was then called hoot and hollers. So London would be on, Australia, Singapore, Tokyo. It was right around midday. And I stood there, and I was about to, everyone's sort of pretending they're on the phone listening to, oh gosh, here's the new boss in town. But I saw on a screen this index, and it wasn't like the TMX or CDOR or whatever the new name of CDOR is, or LIBOR or Canadian dollars. It was the MMI index, and it had 3/6. So I asked the junior on the desk, I said, what is this MMI index? 3/6. And he goes, oh, there's a new boss in town. It's a market on how long he's going to last. And it's basically 3-month bid, as in someone thinks I'm going to last 3 months, and 6 months offered, someone thinks I'm not going to last. And the market's crossing at, 10 personal dollars, 20 personal dollars, right? And I'm sitting here going, MMI index. And of course, everyone could hear me because there's all these hoot and hollers. By this time, everyone's got a phone. They're pretending they're on the client. They're going, oh my God. And I realized, MMI. Shit, that's me. Martine Marley's Irman. That's an index on how, I didn't mean to say shit. Is this live? Oh, that has gotten better. We don't swear on trading floors anymore. But I remember sitting there, and I froze. Like, I completely froze. And I remember somehow, somewhere, I said, okay, you know what? I want to know who's 3-month bid and who's 6-month offered by the end of this week. And I said, every single managing director in these 3 businesses, you have 1 month to come and see me and tell me what's working well, what's not working well. And my door will be open for an entire 3 months for anyone else. And I will guarantee you I'll be here after 6 months. Well, by this time, I'm really red, like I probably am right now. I'm speaking way too loud, and I storm out of the trading floor after this fabulous, great speech. But I had nowhere to go. Your floor's on the trading floor, for those on trading floors, and you're the most senior person. If you don't have a seat on the floor, you're usually gone by the next quarter. So I went to the women's washroom, and I called my mother, not the husband, no one. I called Mom. I said, Mom, who has no idea what I did for a living, although she was always proud. I said, Mom, I just got this huge promotion, and everyone thinks I'm going to fail. To which every good mother says, oh, dear, it's all in your head. And I'm like, no, Mom, it's all over the screens, all over the world. And she goes, well, what are you doing? I said, well, Mom, I'm in the women's washroom calling you. And she goes, well, go and prove them wrong. Get out there, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, wise old Mom. So I go back the next day, and I go back on the trading floor, and this chief trader will remain nameless, basically said to me, hey, listen, this little MMI index that we had, it's not because you're a woman. It's not because we think you're going to fail. We were just releasing stress. We're just having fun. We would have done this no matter what. It was just our idea of, we just lost our leader, and here you are. It was just not about you. So the learning for me was, okay, it isn't about me. But I did get free advice for 3 months. I made it a woman thing, but it wasn't a woman thing. It was just something that they would do. And at the end of the day, you will get promotions that you expect. You will not get some that you expect. You will get some that you don't expect. But at the end of the day, it just taught me about EQ, people, listening, but also reminding yourself it's not because you're a woman. And sometimes those things are all in your mind. And to me, it was a great lesson. So I've learned from that. So that's my story. Oh.
So we wanted to do a little bit of moderation on this, so I get to ask Martine some questions, right? But I know it was early in your career, but like the culture of a trading floor that feels the need to make a market on everything.
Let's change
right?
now.
I can't even imagine how absolutely confidence-wrenching that dawning on you of the MMI index, but you kind of toughed it out and said, okay, and you made a comment. So I think that was fantastic. You were brave. But I want to talk about confidence, because then you kind of go to the loo and call your mom. So inside of you, there must have been a part of you that said, like, oh, am I worthy of this? And it is one of the things we talk about a lot in the book, is that all of us, regardless of how successful we are, have that part of us that says, oh, am I worthy? You know, should I be in this job? I can't think of a better story that sort of says that to me. So tell me a little bit about how to play the confidence game.
Well, I think one thing you have to look at yourself and say, someone doesn't set you up for failure. It's not human instinct to be promoted. Someone's made the decision behind your career path. Now, it's a lot more structure nowadays. You know, we don't say shit on the trading floor, but maybe we do. But we also have a lot more structure and robustness in career planning and development. But one of the things, someone made that decision, my then CEO, to say, I'm going to do this. And I'm not setting you up for failure, because he or she will be better off if their decisions are wise decisions. So you have to get it around your head that you're not being set up for failure. And you need to, you know, find allies and find your own little YPO group that you've done with the Judy project. Certainly going to the Judy project was about 7 or 8 years thereafter. It was in the mid-late 90s. But also, you know, whether it's calling your mother or calling someone else, calling someone to say, hey, oh my God, I've got this sense of this. And then what do? They reassure you. They have your best interest at hand. So I think one is to get over yourself, recognize that you don't normally get set up for failure, and learn from it, and talk about it. And men do it as well. Like, it's not just a women thing. I mean, men do it. Maybe they walked. Maybe they wouldn't have gone to the men's washroom. They would have gone somewhere else and said, oh, I double bid 3 and I whatever, single offer 5 and make $100 in between. I don't know. But I would say usually they go through the same level of emotion.
Yeah.
But someone's behind you, so you can't, you know, you're not at it alone. And having a conversation about it and admitting it. I mean, I did talk to other folks thereafter, but I walked into my CEO and he knew about the index at the time. That night he goes, how was your day? I wasn't going to talk to him about it because he knew about it. And people said she was really resilient. And kept saying, how was your day? Really? Like, how did it go when you first walked on the trading floor? I said, oh, it went great. Meanwhile, I'm going, oh, I don't want to talk to him. But I took a while, but I knew he was there, and I knew he knew about it, right? So it's an evolution.
And I do agree that that trading rooms have changed. I know I was on a trading room in the mid-90s, and it has changed. So is there any other advice you would give to a young woman on the trading floor today about resilience, about confidence?
So I would say, I mean, and we heard about it in the opening remarks, there's no better environment to be a woman in business, as far as I'm concerned. 35 years in the private sector and these kinds of environment, we want to see more women. There are more women on trading floors. There may not be as many more senior women that we want to aspire to more. So the confidence bit is making sure that you are heard. And your voice matters. It mattered when you were in university. It matters now. It matters even more now because of the changes in the industry. So you know what? If you are walking out of a compensation conversation or a promotion conversation or some informal feedback, make sure you're heard. People want to hear from you. And there's no better environment. So yeah, trading rooms have changed, and they've changed in terms of who's in the room, how you're doing business, what's acceptable, and it's still down to you own your career. So my message to women is be heard at all levels, and be heard when you don't get that promotion, and be heard when you do, and talk to other people about it and bring people along.
Thank you.
Thank you. My red? Yeah, red.
Okay. Watch this. I'd like to introduce Maria T.
Maria T. That was easy.
Take a Kleenex.
And she was introduced formally earlier, but the other thing I wanted to say is that she co-founded the Scotiabank He for She, and has been a champion for diversity in the organization. She has a story that when we launched the book, she was willing to read for us, and there wasn't a dry eye in the group because it is an authentic and heartfelt story.
So I can't do the Martine without reading this. I have to read it to control my emotions. So.
Yeah.
My story is entitled My Father's Daughter. As a senior leader in my organization, I often get asked what drives me. I think it's a story my father first shared with me when I was in elementary school. And to this day, I can't tell it without getting emotional. My parents were from very poor farming families on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. Neither had any formal education, and both had started working at a young age to support their families. They immigrated to Johannesburg, South Africa, for a better life. When I was born, my father went to a government office in Johannesburg to register my birth. His English wasn't very good, so he couldn't fill in the form. But when he asked for help, the people working in the office started laughing at him, shaming him. In fact, one sarcastically told him that he should have gone to school before having a baby. He was so embarrassed and upset and responded very protectively, "I came to this country for a better life. I hope one day this little baby girl grows up to be more successful than all of you," or at least something akin to that. A lady in the office took pity on him and filled in the form. I will always remember my roots in the context of how my father was made to feel that day. I never want to make anyone feel the same thing. I focus on respecting all individuals for the value they bring to the team, regardless of role or education or status. This humility and compassion are key, and I'm not very tolerant of people who don't work that way. Most importantly, I want people to feel valued for who they are and what they are. And of course, there's also this. I want to prove my dad was right about his hopes for me that day in that birth registry office over and over again. I want to vindicate him and make all his sacrifices worthwhile.
Well done. Okay, you got me going.
So, Maria, I think your story really helps broaden what the book's about, which is diversity and inclusion in terms of our conversation. I guess I'd start by, we talk about the value of storytelling. Can you reflect a little bit about the drive that your dad's storytelling to you all through your life helped drive you?
You know, it was my dad's raw emotion every time he told that story that really had the powerful impact on me. Because it never changed no matter what time of my life he actually told it to me. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, he did bring it up every time I did well at school, or got an award, or graduated. As if to say, look, you've proved me right, and I feel like I carry that with me. But I think the other thing that story did for me personally, because it was so unfair. It's like the injustice of it. My dad was a super smart man who, due to his circumstances, did not have the opportunity to fulfill his full potential. And these people did not look past the veneer to see the person and value that person. And that, to me, is what I take with me in my personal interactions or my leadership with people. And that's the powerful aspect of it, too, right? So it's driven me, but at the same time shaped my own personal value system in terms of dealing with people.
So I want to explore that just a wee bit more, if that's okay. But there's another story in the book, Daria Thorpe, who is with a medical supply company as the CEO. And when she reads her story, she's from Russia. And when she reads her story, before she starts it, she always, and I'm going to just play this game. How many of you were not born in Canada? Keep your hands up. How many of you have parents that weren't born in Canada? And how many of you lead people on your team that weren't born in Canada? Like, it's almost the entire room, which is why inclusion and diversity and accepting the differences and understanding the differences in others is so important. Daria talks about the fact that She's born in Russia. She did not see the same cartoons we saw. She does not, it's not the same movie stars. Nothing in her early life prepared her to live in Canada besides her grit and her guts. And I think that's something we have to remember. So I wanted, Maria, because you think about this so much, I do want you to talk a little bit about how do we become more culturally aware? Like, what are the things you can tell those of us who were born in Canada and have had the luck and privilege of growing up in this country that will help us lead people better in inclusive strategies?
You know, there's always a quote that people say, right? Diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. And that's the true value of having a diverse team, is if you as a leader can unlock that value. And you can only unlock that value if you choose to include people. Like, it actually takes work. It doesn't just happen that we all get together and we will coalesce, because you're right, we all come from different backgrounds. There's a lot of stories I cannot relate to because I didn't grow up in Canada. I have no idea what that TV program is, or that that example that everyone laughs at, and you're like, I wonder what that means. Is that a person? Like, you know, I think, and so as leaders, our job is to actually ensure that everyone who's in that room is feeling included in the conversation and is also has a voice. And to do that, you have to be more culturally aware. We cannot take the view that our perspective is the only view. So you've got to challenge those stereotypes. And as new immigrants in particular, because they might have an accent, their English may not be perfect, we stereotype people very quickly. And so I think actually every leader should do some cultural awareness training. And there's so many resources out there. And actually, the best way to do it is actually to talk to people. Imagine that. You know, get to know your team, understand the background, understand what brought them here and what drives them. And it makes it so much easier then to actually include people in what you do. And because you bring it, let them be their whole self at work. When they can do that, they will be the most productive at work too.
Thank you. I was looking at some stats. Stats Canada says that by 2031, nearly half of the Canadians above the age of 15 will be foreign born or have one foreign parent. So, I've heard it talked about some of our development tools aren't necessarily the tools we need. Like, can someone from another culture honestly do a 360 on the, so maybe, like, what do you think the things are that we can do in terms of our organizations to focus on making sure we're removing our biases?
No, I think there's lots of different things we can do. I think within organizations, it can even start at recruiting. Because honestly, we still have a lot of biases built into that. It's better than it was 20 years ago when I immigrated, when the first question was, oh, no Canadian experience, put the resume went this way, right? Like, people need to understand the equivalency of experiences and qualifications that come. We need skilled resources. The world is our talent pool. So we need to get over that, otherwise we won't survive. So helping hiring managers understand equivalency is just as important from that side of the equation too, so that people understand the value people bring. Then when you're looking at the development tools, I think there's development on both sides. You need the leaders to have cultural awareness. You need people to be aware. If people come from these backgrounds, this is how they act. And it's not because, everyone has the, body language 101, and if you act like this, this is what it means. It doesn't mean that, right? If you come from a different culture, sometimes that means something else. So, you need to be more culturally aware. We need to train our people to be more culturally aware because our world is diverse. So, and then for the new immigrants, I think there's a lot of opportunity to help them with cultural norms, not because you want to change them, but you want to help them navigate through the cultural norms. You also want to help them in the things that tend to get in their way. So a lot of help on communication and language skills, because we have some super, super smart people who are not able to be their voice at the table. And if you want their voice to be there, you need to help them get that voice. I do think there is an opportunity to help people on communication. And I think you're right. Feedback is different taken differently depending on your culture. But to me, that is just good leadership. You should be feedback is a thing that matters one-on-one, and it needs trust. And the way I give you feedback might be different from the way I give Martine feedback, because I choose to find out how they best take feedback. So if you get to that point with your team, you know what they're able to do and what they're not able to do. So then you leverage the best way to give them that feedback. Because generally, the way you like it doesn't mean it's what anybody else likes. And that applies whether there's a cultural difference or whether that person grew up the same way you did, right? So sometimes I think we get caught up with the difference of being immigrants versus kind of the underlying aspect of it, which is just really the diversity around people. So there's lots of things we can do if we consciously try to do it.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. You made us both cry.
So Beth Wilson is our last storyteller. She's done so many things, and they were mentioned in the opening. And she's also ridden, have you ridden 1,000,000 miles for cancer yet?
No, I don't think so.
Feels like it.
Too young to do that.
Yeah. But I will say that Beth was the first person I went to, and I said, if we're going to do this book, you need to tell this story, because this is a story that that all of us need to hear. And so give her a go.
Thank you, Colleen. Colleen placed my story in the chapter called Courage. So I was hiking solo on top of a mountain in Colorado in 2017 when I made a brave decision to leave the company I'd been at for 26 years. I'd had a great career at KPMG Canada, starting straight out of university, progressing quickly through the ranks. In fact, for the past 11 years, I'd held senior leadership roles. And I had all the ingredients I could have asked for to be successful there: talent, work ethic, opportunity, support, sponsorship, and a desire to have an impact. Yet I knew that leaving my job, without even having another to go to, was absolutely the right thing for me. So let me explain. Back in 2006, I attended the Judy Project. I had just been appointed KPMG's Chief Human Resources Officer, my first big leadership role, and I was excited, I was scared, I was probably more than a little overwhelmed, and lonely in terms of finding a group of people that I could be comfortable talking to about the challenges I was facing. So the Judy Project came at the right time for me, and it really awoke in me the courage to call my desire to have an impact something different. I learned it was okay for women to call it ambition and to embrace it. So I returned to work, ready to tackle each new challenge with renewed energy, to learn and to stretch myself as a leader. And during those years, as I learned and grew as a leader, I began to see in myself what other colleagues and my CEO had told me they saw: CEO potential. I was intrigued by the opportunity to bring my vision to life and unleash the potential of our people in a talent-driven organization. And so over the 10 years, I really focused on building my portfolio of experiences and learning from each role I had. In 2016, the CEO succession process commenced. People don't really talk about what it is like to get into that arena as a woman, and I'm here to tell you that it was really intense. It takes a lot of courage for anybody to compete for a CEO position against a group of talented peers, putting a vision out there with emotion and passion. And I was the first woman to do so at KPMG, and the only woman in the process, by the way. And I was almost the first female CEO of a Big Four professional services firm in Canada. So even though I could tick every box on the competency and experience checklists, I was scrutinized intensely as a female leader. I found I was studied in painful detail. Every person I'd promoted, every business decision I'd made, the way I spoke, the way I dressed, the way I presented on stage. And I heard a lot of conflicting criticisms. She's too people-oriented and she's too soft. And she's not consultative enough and too directive. She's not authentic enough. She's not personal enough. She's not a good role model. She works too hard. She's had it too easy. And she's too ambitious. And even from one person, too perfect. For example, I learned that some thought my public speaking was overly rehearsed and perceived as not truly authentic. My messaging and delivery is something I had really worked hard on because I wanted people to hear my words, to understand my vision and experience me as a leader, calm, confident, and compelling. And instead, those things often got lost because people spent time debating if I was too polished or too perfect or not really speaking from the heart. And in fact, I was always authentic and I was always passionate, but I also practiced. I thought about every detail in the delivery in advance. I did wonder if anyone had told a man that he was too good at public speaking. What I experienced at the time reminded me of a lot of the similar criticisms of Hillary Clinton that were in the news. Still, I pressed on, surprising myself, actually, to find out how deeply I could reach for the strength. I needed to face the politics and ignore the criticisms and be confident in my track record and passionate about my vision. And so with the support of my family the whole way, I gave it my all. But on a Friday morning, I got that phone call from our board chair after deliberations were done to choose the next CEO, and I was not selected. I went home and I had a really good cry while my 18-year-old son hugged and cried along with me. I don't think the fact I wasn't chosen was explicitly about being a woman, although I do believe that most organizations still struggle with a different style of female leadership. I find that women are more inclusive and collaborative and are consensus-oriented. They're people-centric, drawn to the power of talent, and are better at systems-type thinking. It could have been a combination of factors: politics, maybe my strategy did not resonate with the board. Regardless, that's when I discovered I had even more courage than I imagined. Courage for my final act, which would be to leave. I booked a trip to Colorado that very day, and there I was on one of my mountain hikes when I came to the realization there must be something bigger out there for me to lead, and that I had to leave the comfort of an organization I'd been part of for over a quarter century and am still deeply loyal to, and leap into the abyss. I had only the faith that I'd discover my next opportunity in due course. And later that year, I became the CEO of the Canadian region of the world's largest law firm, Dentons. I'm not a lawyer. It was a bold but strategic move by Dentons to go outside the firm for their next CEO and target a non-lawyer, a change agent. And for the record, I don't think my gender factored into the hiring decision one way or the other. As I said goodbye to my female colleagues at KPMG, I felt it was really important to share my courage and my support and to pass on my learnings. And so here are the thoughts that I left them via an email on my last day. Subject: to all my female partners, goodbye, and a few thoughts for your action. Many of you have had conversations with me in the last few months that had a big impact. So as I depart, I feel compelled as a woman who loves KPMG and believes in your potential to send you some thoughts and include 3 small, maybe big, asks. I reached for the top rung and failed. Yes, I just used the F word, and I'm okay with that. Note, I did not say I'm a failure, but merely that I failed, which is true. And my first ask is that you be comfortable with that as well. You should embrace that I tried, understand why I was not successful, explore it, pull it apart, and ask tough questions about it. Because if you don't explore it, you can't learn from it. The institution can't learn, leaders can't learn, and most importantly, women can't learn. Second, I ask of you, don't be afraid to reach really, really, really high. Don't be afraid to fail. If you don't reach out of fear of failure, you will never know what you could have been, and the world won't have benefited from your talented leadership at senior levels. I had a lot of boxes checked on the competency and experience checklist, and I still didn't make it, and that is all the more reason why you should push and push hard. And third, please help each other. You have to help each other. If you felt at all compelled to do something after my unsuccessful bid to become CEO, then make a commitment today to truly help one another. So what does help look like? Well, something like the following is a good place to start. First, Recognize, celebrate, and talk about each other's accomplishments and strengths using powerful business language. She's a great operator. She has a great eye for talent. She's active in the market. What a great business developer. Makes tough decisions. Second, don't get sucked into rock chucking. There are enough people lining up criticizing all leaders, male or female. Don't throw rocks at one of your own. We women are as guilty as men for criticizing each other and falling prey to our unconscious bias. Too soft, too perfect, not authentic, poor judgment, not inclusive enough, etc. Third, leverage your voice to ensure women are on every slate. Leverage your position to advocate for them and influence the decisions. There continue to be inordinate, subtle challenges for female candidates for any leadership role, and so you have to over-rotate to support them. That takes courage and a willingness to let your own personal brand come under fire. I am convinced that KPMG has a future female CEO in its midst today, and I would love to see the firm make it a reality before I'm too old to recognize the name. I hope you take up the challenge and you make it happen. I'm leaving KPMG not because I failed to become the CEO. I'm leaving KPMG because I want to grow as a leader, because my work is not done. And after time in industry, I'll take my experiences in leadership into the boardrooms of corporate Canada and work from that platform to help break more glass ceilings for women. I wish each of you all the best in your personal and professional endeavors. I wish KPMG future success to thrive as the great organization it is meant to be. Make me proud. I will be watching with anticipation and cheering for all of you. I want to hear the stories of how you reached, failed, learned, pulled another woman along, reached again, and succeeded. So please keep in touch. Forever a supporter and an advocate for you, Beth.
So it's a very deeply personal story, and it's got a lot of themes that are critical. I love the thing, I failed, but I'm not a failure. I think for many men and women in the room, you have to live with sometimes not achieving your goal. So, and constructively define sort of a way forward. Any advice on that?
Yeah, I thought, you asked me that question, Colleen, and I thought about a number of times in my career where I had disappointments or setbacks. And every time I always took time away for myself. Maybe it was as short as a half-hour walk, or it was a week away in Colorado to go hiking, because I think you go through a series of emotions when you have a disappointment in your career, small or large. So you might be angry, frustrated, sad, disappointed, lose your confidence, depressed, all of those things. And I think you have to give yourself the space and time away from everybody to feel the emotions and then reflect. And I personally think that a really strong sense of purpose makes a big difference for people, because it's not so much about the role, it's about the impact that you want to have and what you want to do with your leadership. And so if you can go back to that sense of purpose, separate yourself from that specific role or project or whatever the it was that you didn't get, then you can learn from the experience and redirect yourself.
Thank you. So I'll do this one more question and then we'll go to a close. But you had some reflections on our unconscious bias and whether that comes from the media we've consumed over our lives, but it allows observers to be overly aware of women's flaws, like voice tone, dress, mannerisms, and that unfortunately impacts the value of their strengths. You know, you and I reflected on an article that a feminist wrote in the Globe and Mail about the women that were running for the Democratic Party. And media unconscious bias creates skepticism. So what are the things we can all do to make that stop?
I think it finally stops when we have more women in senior leadership roles, to be honest, Colleen, so that we have more variety of role models. I think there's a number of things we can do. First of all is awareness. So having this conversation today is a big step along the way. And I think for all men and women in the room, just trying to be aware, catch yourself, even if it's not something you say, but it's a thought that goes through your mind, try to catch the thought and stop yourself. I think it's really important that we also correct other people. So when we hear other people saying some of the things that we heard referred to even on the panel, we really need to stop the conversation and course correct it and watch for our language. Unconscious bias, I'm a big believer in unconscious bias training for the most senior levels of the organization through to anybody in a hiring manager role, anybody in a people leader role. There's a lot you learn because no matter who you are, we all have unconscious bias that is informed by how we grew up and what we know. And so I think, investing in that really matters. And we need more people to be willing to explore failure, as I talk about in my story. Because I think unless you talk to diverse candidates, women, others who have gone through a process and ask for their feedback on the process, then all you do is replicate what got you, a successful candidate into the role without asking yourselves all the debrief questions around how did other candidates experience that process and what could be done to depoliticize it, to make it more objective, et cetera.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. I have one more question. Any tips on what we do to foster transparency about issues for everybody so that the conversations occur in the open, right? Lots of times conversations don't happen in the open, whether a man feels threatened or, a woman feels overlooked. So how do we have real transparency in conversations like that?
Wow. You want me to solve world peace at the same time?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think if you have diversity in your senior leadership team and there's inclusion so people feel that they can speak from their position of difference, that should drive a more transparent conversation. If it's like people talking to like people, and then even if you have one or two people who come from a different background in the room, that's not enough to drive transparency of conversation. So I think it just comes back again to a much more diverse group of people having the conversation, and it pulls it out.
Okay, thank you. Farah, do I have 5 minutes to give a closing comment, do you think? Is that okay? Okay, so thank you. Thank you, all of you who attended today. I mentioned the book that couldn't have been done if we didn't have the companies sponsor it. That was fantastic. Omer sponsored the books, so you all get to go home and read all of the stories, and thank you for that. But my comments are more that we are maybe at a different point in time. Women are bringing their selves to the workplace and their stories, including their ability to reach out at an emotional level. And I think that makes a difference for all of us as we work in the workforce. The other point I'd make is it's survival. Our millennials, God bless them, we raised them. They do truly have an expectation that their views and their voices and the way they think matter. They are changing our climate, no pun intended, in our companies. The diversity, the sexual orientation, and the culture makeup are changing our communities and our companies in a really good way. And all the research says when this happens, companies perform better. And we all need to nurture the qualities of leadership that inspire people. People come to work to be inspired. Think about the characteristics you most admire in other people, and those are the things that make organizations stronger. At the beginning of the book, there's a quote that says, if you can see one, you can be one. And our younger men and women in business need role models, mentors, and sponsors, and we all have to play our role. So if you're a leader, male or female, think about what you can do to help bring a younger person forward, develop their skills. I always say, help them know now what you know now, right? Don't let it be the 40 years that it takes for that to actually sink in. I mean, I think #MeToo has been a tough time as we've accepted harsh realities of what may have gone on in the past, but it's really opened a good opportunity to start talking. So to the younger women in the audience, soon it will be your turn to lead. Be honest, be courageous, be compassionate, sympathetic, all the things that we're talking about. And above all, as a role model, Judy had something that she said in her speech. She said, acknowledge and be proud of your ambition. Recognize that it's there to drive you to greater achievements and sustain you through challenges. And when you couple that with the competence, hard work, and the morality that you learned on your mother's knee, you can defend that insidious erosion of the feeling of inadequacy, the fear of being in charge, and the doubts that we all have about our capacity to lead. So I thank you all for being part of our conversation today.
One more time for everybody here. This, I began today by saying we want to have conversations that matter at the Empire Club, and I think we've done just that today. I learned a lot about the Judy Project through being involved in this event. To think that Judy Elder began this because she wanted to inspire women, and I see that's sort of clearly what's happened and what's grown out of this project. The personal stories you've each told only underscore for me, someone who comes from a comms background, that stories really are this great device that can unlock so much in conversation. So thanks for doing that. In closing, I will tell you that we have a couple events coming up. On October 15th, we have the second chapter of Cannabis. You can find that on our website. Tomorrow, or on October 16th, we have Barry Perry, the president and CEO of Fortis. Thank you very much, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.